town ladies sing that song. So that's why we're doing that. And in our agenda looks about like this. We're welcoming you right now, and we're going over the agenda. Gwen's going to start with some updates, kind of high-level updates from ELD. That's going to be around 30-35 minutes, and then I've got a brief program update around TNTA, and then Teresa's going to be getting into some of the nitty-gritty with you around our grants, and a reminder that our next meeting, not a reminder, proposal / request, we think we need to meet again on the 19th for reasons that are probably obvious, but we'll talk about them as we go, just in terms of the timing of the release of the grants and other things like that. So make a note, we'll be sending out an invitation, but our proposal is to meet on the 19th at 9. And with that, I'll turn it over to Gwen.
Thanks, Michael. And welcome everyone. I just wanted, before we get started on the ELD updates, it's nice to see so many of you. And I hope you're doing well, your families are doing well. I know this has been just a strange 6 months, and not only for our own counties, communities, families, state, but just every day there's just, the news is, it's hard to find some good news sometimes. So I hope you're taking care of yourself and just enjoying Oregon and those you love. So I don't want to be depressing. I just want to make sure that we're acknowledging that these are hard times, and it's just really, actually, I look forward to this. I look forward to seeing your faces. I talked with Donna briefly on Monday, and just missing the meetings with you in person at Eagle Crest and other locations that we gather. So, and I know that this is a really difficult time, especially in your roles as directors and leaders in your community of early learning. So I'll try to provide as many updates as I can. The team's here to answer some questions and make sure that we are, just being as responsive as we can with the information that we have. So the first thing I want to talk about is the intent to awards and grant agreements. I know this is, the delay is creating a lot of challenges and additional anxiety, stress for many of you. So this is a timeline and what we're kind of faced with right now and trying to get these grant agreements out to you. So next week on August 10th, there is a legislative special session, and that is where we actually are hoping to receive our confirmation of funding. That is really what we're kind of waiting on at this point, is that confirmation of funding from the special session. And on August 13th, the Early Learning Council meeting is meeting to review appeals, and they have some other agenda topics as well. That was delayed. It was scheduled for last week and then postponed to August 13th. So those two events have to happen for us to be able to finalize your grant agreements and get them out to you as soon as possible following those two events. So just wanted to let you know that's sort of where we're at with our timing. We have everything as teed up as we can. Teresa can talk about that a little bit, but I just wanted to see what questions you had about this timeline, anything that, just wanted to open up for discussion on this.
Gwen, this is Donalda. Is the funding retro to July? I mean, some of us are trying to do planning. Is the funding retro to July?
Yeah, Teresa, do you want to respond to that?
Sure. Yes, and while we cannot officially authorize work to occur now, once we do execute the grant agreements, we are going to make the grant agreements effective as of July 1, allowing you to recoup any costs you choose to incur that are attributable to the grant. And I'm actually reading a statement, so I can answer any more after that, but I wanted to keep that firm statement in front of me.
And a popular question in our FAQ in our,
We're working on buying classroom setups, so we can start on time. And I'm just wondering if we've got a good estimate of what that startup funding is going to be at this point. Certainly don't want to break the bank as we're getting those classrooms prepared.
Lindsay or Michael, would you like to respond to that one in regard to startup?
Yeah, I know that we it's on the agenda for a little bit later, but that's fine. It's a great question, Robert. We have closed the survey that we had to you all, asking you to restate your requests. We are, what we need to do is I have a slide for this, but we say something like in the next, between now and next Friday, we want to confer with each of you who's made these requests and dial down a little bit with you about sort of what your priorities are, and confer with you a little bit about the classroom setups that Lindsay's going to talk about, because we have hopes that that's going to defray some of your costs, because we have these full setups and some cool stuff from Lakeshore. So our target is to have those numbers agreed upon by the end of next week. But again, that's also subject to the prepared statement by Teresa around what's authorizable and what's reimbursable.
I'll just add to that, because I know a few of you have also received an intent to award for other programming, either Preschool Promise or maybe Equity Fund. So in regard to Preschool Promise, there was a short survey that went out to assess the startup needs, and Preschool Promise is on the same timelines. So around knowing, what funds are available for startups. So if you are a dual recipient of that, same timeline for trying to get all of that figured out.
And we do currently have the classrooms available. So if for folks who are interested in talking more about that, I'm more than happy to talk you through it. I know I sent out kind of the overview and inventory lists of those things, and I'm happy to resend them. I do have some classrooms in Ontario, Robert, just so you know. So those, those are available in the meantime, and that would be an easy way for us to get you some materials and get things set up prior to your grant agreements being executed. So if that's something that you're interested in, please let me know. There's 50 classrooms, 20 infant, 20 toddler, and 10 preschool. And I have them kind of, they're stored mostly with OCDC. Thank you very much, Donalda. And we have a few other programs who have graciously lent me their space, or lent us their space. So they're kind of around. And I know that I've mentioned it before, but in this particular situation where you don't have your grant agreements executed, this might be helpful. So just as a way. Oh, would you like me to talk about my slide now, Michael?
Well, just because it came up organically, so here we go.
Yeah, that's fine. So one of the things that was tricky is that a lot of you need mixed age group classrooms, and in our haste to try and make sure that we had everything we need for emergency childcare, we bought infant and toddler classrooms, just trying to make it really easy to cater to a specific group. But we know that we don't want to give you guys things that you don't need, right? We don't want to cause more problems. We want to be helpful, not challenging. And so what I asked Lakeshore to do was to develop a crosswalk of the things that would be needed in order to make an infant classroom a mixed age group classroom, or a classroom a mixed age group classroom. And what they did was they created a system to make those classrooms into mixed age group classrooms, and they've done it in a way that hopefully makes it really easy and accessible. So they're calling them expansion packs, and they're all together one SKU number, so you don't have to go through and pick one thing or a handful of things that you need. That it's all kind of lumped together. Each expansion pack are under $2,000, which with our estimate and what we've budgeted for, obviously, like we said, we don't have the final number because of the special session, but what we had budgeted for would fit, the $2,000 would fit what we have budgeted for these particular classrooms. So they would fall in your startup cost as allowable for the whole price. Sorry, I haven't been speaking for several days. Today's my day where I'm talking the most so far because I had some work done on my throat last week. So it's really easy. They're easy to order. They're going to deliver them. They'll unpack them. They'll sort them. They'll do their whole setup in the same way you try to plan for deliveries at the same time that you would receive the delivery of the other classroom materials. Please let me know. Good. Thank you. And then I have your survey stuff, so I'll be contacting you if you said that you needed classrooms. So there's that as well.
So in regards to the timeline, this is Kim. I'm curious to know, like with the later, we're finding out later about the NOAA and about all of the grant agreements. And in the initial application, it said that we needed to be up and going by the end of September. Will that be relaxed for programs? Because just listening to Teresa, we don't have authority to purchase anything until we actually officially get our grant. So will we have some grace as far as putting up classrooms for expansion slots?
Yeah, I can take that. Is that all right?
Yeah, I think it sort of goes into the next topic a little bit too. So maybe if you don't mind, Gwen, just sort of, we got to get to the question of startup time, but let's talk maybe a little bit about our planning around programming. I think that's what we're going to do. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, the original date was end of September. By the end of September, and obviously with our delay and different factors, that's some of you might be able to just based on the service model or that you had applied for. It might be continuing services that you were already providing. So some of you may or for some of your slots you may be able to sort of keep things rolling. But for new expansion slots where you need additional space, facilities, materials, all those things, staff, all those pieces that are required, we're looking at putting a new date of October 31st in. But that comes sort of with a bit of a caveat in the sense of we know that there are individual situations, and also that but there are individual situations. So we're trying to create some systems to accommodate that. So what we're working on right now is developing some program models that are flexible to meet your community, family, and staff needs, that are reflective of the services that you have been providing. You've been sending us great information on what type of creative modified services you've been able to provide, and also models that demonstrate a high level of engagement with families. And so what we've been asked to do is kind of with those kind of constraints is really think about like what are, I'll start over on that. What we're working on are some models that you would be able to like select and say like, this is what we're doing. And it's really more about informing us what you're doing and allowing us the ability to track that, because with this expansion of funding, there's a high level of accountability. And so we want to be able to answer any questions that come our way around, how the funds are being used, the services provided to children and families. And also that'll provide us with a lot of good information around sort of the creativity, but also what's impactful and what's effective in working with children and families during these unusual times. So it could be that, like I said, back to the grant agreement, if we're saying services, need to start by the end of October, it could be that you're submitting to us like sort of like your level of service that you're able to provide by October 31st. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be site-based. It could be site-based, it could be virtual, it could be a hybrid, or something, in between in a sense. So I think that I don't want people to get too hung up on the date. It's really what I'd love for you to focus on. I think you've all been doing incredibly well, is like really being responsive to your families and your community and determining what their needs are and meeting that need. So I hope that kind of are there more questions on that? But we would want you to hopefully engage with families, by October 31st for the new programming in some capacity. I think it goes back to some of the original questions even prior to COVID, where some of you had requested, if we're starting a new early Head Start program, would we be able to start with a home-based, or home visiting model first, and then move into more site-based services as the facilities were prepared. So I think that there's, much more flexibility now around that type of implementation. And so we really want you to be successful, but we also know that there's lots of families ready and ready for your services in any capacity that you can provide.
Thank you, Gwen.
And we're on a sort of a tight timeline on these models. And I know that we've been following what, Region 10 and the Office of Head Start has been sending out to all of you. And, from what we can tell at this point in time, what they're asking is, tell us what your model is, tell us what you're doing. And that's kind of a thumbs up, green light from them. And ours, we're following the same. We're trying to align as best we can with that. And also, we want to sort of be able to kind of at least, I'd say, create sort of to be able to tell the story in a way that our funders, the legislators, can kind of see what we're doing. So we might be more, I don't want to say compartmentalize, that's the wrong word, because I think we want to provide as much flexibility as possible, but there'll be a way that we're asking for you to give us the information on your model that helps us to sort of create categories of services and levels of services. So it might be a little more prescriptive than what Region 10 is asking of you, but we'll make sure that we're in alignment and that we're not duplicating, efforts there. We don't want to make you have to do multiple reports.
This is Michael. I think part of it is that we want to have guide with models, but we also want to capture the creative solutions that you all have come up with in a way that's recognizable. So like any menu, you may order the burger and then say no pickles, but we want to be able to say, okay, this is the burger, this is the remote with whatever it is that you've creatively come up with. A lot of you are doing very similar things, and we want to be able to capture that and say at a high level, well, half the programs are doing this and another third are doing this, and then Donna's always got her own thing going, so we got to capture that somehow too.
Michael, this is Darcy.
Hey, Darcy.
Hi. Just a couple of thoughts. So initially we were told that you wanted us to be up and running by the end of September, which would have allowed us to have essentially a 12-week timeline to do things like, permitting processes and such. And so I would encourage you to think about that timeline when you put a hard date on when services should be up and running. And I would also like to have a little bit more information, because you're saying that after August, I think the slide said 13th, as soon as possible, grants would be executed. And frankly, there was a very similar slide that indicated July 17th, just a month ago. And so, many of us are trying to not only develop what our programs might look like this fall, and of course it changes on a daily basis, and also trying to get ready to provide early Head Start with absolutely no idea about funding or startup, and keeping people employed with no funding to, fund the paychecks on the state side. So I guess I understand that you're trying to be, sensitive to our needs, but I'm still pretty frustrated.
I totally understand, Darcy. This is Gwen. It is frustrating. And you know, to say as soon as possible that's our commitment. And I recognize, you know, if we had dates before that were presented, we've always tried to present you with the most current, accurate information, you know, like what we have at that moment around the timelines. We're not in control of all these timelines, right? We have to wait for the legislative special session to confirm our funding, right? So we're going to, so I apologize for the impact it has on your programming, on your implementation. I wish we had the ability to, you know, confirm something prior to that, or that there was another way, you know, for us to get even startup funding out. We are in a holding. We have to wait until this happens. So, but if there's anything that we can do, you know, if there's ideas for what we could do to help relieve some of that, we are open to hearing, you know, because we might not be thinking of something that might be beneficial for you and what you need. In regard to the 12 weeks, I think, you know, what I was trying to say here is we recognize that some of you will need probably 12 weeks to get things up and rolling based on your plan for implementation. What we're encouraging is that if you're able to engage with families, you know, at some level, to do that as soon as possible once you receive your funding. And I can say for the as soon as possible, you know, the intent to award are out, right? So I think, you know what the intent is. You've sent in your startup fund request. Lindsay and Michael have addressed that. And so we are working internally off of the assumption that those are sort of the funding levels. And so if things change, that would slow us down. But if things remain the same, then we can move very quickly. And so that's why I say as soon as possible, because if there were to be an addition of funds or potential reduction, you know, so it's like we just have to wait. But if things go sort of as planned, we have things teed up ready to go.
This is Michael. Two thoughts. One is the particulars of this, I don't know, situation are different because of COVID and the public health emergency and the fact that the economy is struggling. And this is sort of where I'm pivoting to the group, especially people who have been around. This is unfortunately also somewhat typical. That is, we've had my first year I was here, the legislature wasn't meeting until the end of August, and we didn't have funding to push out the door until early September. And so I guess I'm asking for thoughts from veterans about, and Darcy's a veteran, but I'm just inviting anybody who has thoughts about what you're doing to cope with this, strategies, tactics, maneuvers, whatever. And you can talk amongst yourselves, and I'm sure you are, but just you all have a lot of solutions and a lot of resources, a lot of insights, in addition to what we can provide, which is unfortunately not a ton right now.
All right, so do you want me to go to the next slide on that? I was checking to see if there's anything in the chat. And then, okay. I think it's the next one, Michael.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, no problem. All right, so the kind of final update here is around the revisions to the emergency childcare guidance. And want to first thank many of you have been involved or provided input, suggestions. There were a variety of stakeholder engagements that took place, I would say, with you, but also across many different early learning partners and provider types. So we are in the final stretch here. there is a provider call tonight, an English provider call tonight, and tomorrow night a Spanish provider call. If you have a licensed program or facility, you received an invitation or notification of that event. It is designed, the call is designed to do sort of an overview of the revisions, how stakeholder input was used, and also how science was utilized to make the revisions, sort of like a step-by-step from where it was before to where we are now. But it's not in detail, it's very high level. It's not, it's not even an embargoed copy of the new guidance. We are still working through with OHA and to kind of get the final version. And so, but there are some calls, so if you're interested, please join. And then on August 14th, we are set to launch. So the new guidance will be disseminated. There will be a time frame for you to implement the new guidelines. And let's see, and it'll be available in 5 different languages as well. So we're having it translated as we speak. And so then at our next meeting together on August 19th, we will definitely be, have this as an agenda topic and be able to respond to questions. But then there'll be ongoing technical assistance. And for those of you who are, have a licensing specialist, if you are licensed, then, please, your licensing specialists are being trained up on the new guidance. They're a great resource to you. And also you can reach out to the OPK staff as well. So just wanted to give you the heads up on that. And if there were any questions about the new guidance, any thoughts?
Gwen, this is Eva. I just wanted to ask if you know in the final guidance, what will the implementation date for those changes be?
Yeah, Eva, I knew I should have. I will get that for you, okay? And it was sort of, there is a date that is provided, and it was sort of bolded because, we weren't sure if we were going to be delayed in some way on getting the translations all done, so they kind of were holding on that. But I think we're pretty close to the end line here, and so I think I can look that up and send it. But just know it's a tentative until the final guidance is released next week.
We're still in session through August 26th, so I'm just wary that the change could be like implement this by August 20th, and then we have to make some quick course corrections for the last few days of our 19-20 school year.
Yeah, I'll make sure, and I wish I should have had that pulled up as a, because I kind of knew that question. As soon as I got to this, I was like, oh, there's going to be a question, and I should have double checked on that because I don't want to give misinformation. So it's not an immediate turnaround time.
Yeah, I would be happy to. Gwen, it looks like what the ELD is looking like is a September 1st as the day implementation needs to be done. And they're being very clear that while the guidance is slated to come out on the 14th, we are not be implemented on the 15th or even within a short period of time. So September 1st is what's being looked at, but again, nothing is finalized until the new guidance is put out.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Welcome.
And for those of you in operation now, I'm trying to think what, I think, the most feedback we received was around the wearing of masks by staff, and then obviously around group size, and then some of the daily activities. But I think for those of you who have been operating, I think some of the safety precautions that you have in place for your center-based operations are probably, hopefully there won't be huge adjustments that are needed for you.
I would just be curious if anybody wants to weigh in around the group size. Have you changed your planning? Are you planning to go to bigger group sizes, or is it a mixed bag, or just curious about what that impact might be for you all?
This is Eva again, and we are standing at group sizes of 10, at least for the fall, with the understanding that parent preference is going to determine if we even get to that group size because of the desire for remote services. But that we'll assess our community and our virus numbers and our situations periodically and potentially increase those caps to slide some kids over into classrooms during the school year.
Thank you, Eva.
Michael,
Sue?
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, Sue, then Pam. Susan, and then Pam.
Is it me you're asking, Michael? Suzanne Miller?
Yes.
Or?
Yes, Suzanne, sorry.
Suzanne Miller. So here's Lincoln County. Our school district is only going remote. We just had another outbreak effective on, well, we just learned about it yesterday, and another outbreak. So we're not sure what the status of the county is according to the governor at this point, because with the rise in numbers that has now increased, we back on the watch list. But the governor was very clear last Thursday on schools, and especially related to younger children. So if the school district remains closed down, even to K through 3, it will be because of our numbers, and this recent outbreak is going to have an effect on that. So I'm watching what the school district is doing. We are welcoming our staff back next week, and we will begin outreach after training immediately to parents and families who have signed up to find out where they are. We're seeing a decrease in applications. The fear in our county is high, especially now that the school district is clear that they're not going to open. And they're not sure. They're looking at November as the earliest, and this has an impact on everyone's situation here, as well as an impact on our own staff who have children who they anticipated were going into schools at a hybrid model. So there are several balls being thrown around the air over here. Right. And so what we're doing is remaining available to change our course at any given time, sure. Which is all we can do.
Right.
But it's pretty serious right now.
Thank you, Suzanne, and thank you for correcting me after I mangled your name. I appreciate that. Pam, we have time for one more comment here. I think you were trying to get in.
Yeah, I was just going to say that our current plan is to only have group sizes of 10, and that'll carry me to January. I don't actually even anticipate having that many families that want to have their children in care. At this point, we opened on Monday, and we're only serving 30 out of 60 that had said they wanted it. So numbers are just showing, and 5 of my 6 school districts have confirmed that they are 100% virtual, which then takes my workforce down, because most of my workforce are young parents that have children in elementary schools. So that's my report.
Okay, thank you, Pam, and thank you all for chiming in there. I know you have a lot more, and we've been getting lots of emails, and we want to keep talking about this with you, and we'll talk more about it on the 19th. Gwen, I want to make sure you got to what you wanted to get to, and I know you have to go to another meeting, so.
Well, thank you all so much. I'll see you soon, and I'm sorry that I have to hop off. So please take care. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you. So we're going to switch gears a little bit. I promised that we'd do a little bit of OPK programming stuff and maybe get away from the high stress, high stakes topics that we're talking about, and to share with you a little bit and then get some feedback. We're making a little bit of an internal shift on our team, and I've been asked to take a little bit more of a lead on thinking about training and technical assistance systems for OPK. We've always had your program specialists kind of do everything, like a multi-tool, and we continue to plan to do some of that. But I have been asked to think about, well, what is with the expanded funding and commitment from the legislature, we actually have real dollars attached to training and technical assistance that we can help organize, and I've been asked to take a lead on that. And so what I wanted to do is, in consultation with some of you, and then also internally and looking at data, we've been working on a draft priorities list for training and technical assistance, which in some ways doesn't seem that prioritized because there's a bunch of topics, but we have a complicated system, as you know. So I wanted to just kind of preview those for you and pause and see if you have any feedback, and then think about next steps with you just a little bit. The first priority that we have identified is around trauma-informed care. And the way I've set up this table is just a topic, and then sort of why do we think this is important? And probably for most of you, it's self-evident why it's important, right? We've got many children and families with
Michael?
There we go. With experiencing poverty, experiencing racism, experiencing harsh immigration climate, challenged by homelessness. So we know that our kids and families have a lot on their plate, and we want to be able to provide high quality and responsive services to them. And we also recognize that many of you have developed innovative systems to really provide the kinds of services and care that our kids and families really need. We want to try to think about how to learn from each other. And then at the bottom there, I'm sort of talking about the fact that trauma-informed care is not this separate thing, that it's connected to lots of other good things, like having classrooms that are warm and welcoming and being responsive to the actual children and families that we have in our classrooms. So this is not a separate topic, but it's a high level, high importance topic in our system. Effective home visiting. So as you know, we have a large expansion of home-based prenatal to 3 in our system. And I like to say that home visiting has many opportunities for good stuff, and also maybe opportunities for mischief if home visitors are not well trained and well supportive in understanding that children, that parents are the first teachers of their children, and how to really support the family as the centerpiece of the children's growth and development. So we want to work with you on supporting new novice home visitors in being effective. And kind of along with that, we have a new, I don't know if you heard about this, but we have an expansion of prenatal to 3 programming. We went from 64 slots to 700. And so we want to be supportive of programs that are adding for the first time or expanding dramatically your prenatal to 3 services. And that's a complicated question. One of the things that we've talked about a lot is, there's a lot of stuff around preschool and there's less stuff around prenatal to 3, and we don't want people to be doing preschool light. Infants and toddlers are their own special creatures that have their own kinds of development and developmental needs, and we really want to help you to orient staff that are working in a prenatal 3 system to providing quality infant toddler programming. This next topic, we recognize that with COVID and all of this, there's a giant COVID asterisk, right? So there's what does COVID have to do with trauma-informed care? What is the impact on staying at home with when you don't have a place to go, when mom and dad might be struggling financially, and so forth, right? So COVID has an impact on every single one of these topics, the public health emergency. What we do know is that the times that our kids are going to be with early educators in our systems are some of the most important times in their life right now, because there aren't a lot of other options for kids to work with other kids, to play with other kids. A lot of play groups are not happening. It's like you can't go to the pool. There's a lot of stuff that shut down. Library, story hour, all the stuff that parents take advantage of. A lot of that is not happening, and so we know that we want our early educators to be focused on some of the crucial foundational things that make early ed so important. That is watching and listening to children and thinking about where they are in their development, and creating activities and experiences that really meet the needs of the kids that they're working with. And so this topic of observation and assessment for individualization, we're putting that out there because that's the priority. Now, I could have put TS Gold here, and we would have a little different conversation. TS Gold is a tool for recording observations and making assessments, and then hopefully linking back with individualization. But I really want to focus on the skill or the craft of watching and learning from kids and providing high quality experiences, and then talk with you about the assessment tool as a separate, or as a connected topic, but that's not the primary topic. We do need to have a conversation about TS Gold, and we're going to talk more about that in 2 weeks. But our thought is, let's focus on what teachers should be doing, and then that'll help us to drive the conversation about the tool. And speaking of another tool, we want to focus also on effective teacher-child interactions. That is when our kids are working with adults, whether they're home visitors or teachers, and even if it's remote, what does the teacher do to support healthy growth and development? What does it mean to be warm and welcoming in a remote environment? How do we make sure that our teachers are ready and that kids are busy? And finally, how can we help teachers to really focus on the good stuff, the big ideas and the cool language and the great conversations? I could have put class here, and class is one of the tools we use to help us learn more about what's going on in this area. But we want to focus on the skills and the craft of providing high quality teaching and learning experiences. And then that'll help drive the question about what are we going to do about class. So, and then as you know, we have a big expansion of extended duration. Again, not sure exactly what that means in the context of COVID, but we know it's on the books that we have a couple thousand extended duration slots, and we have an ongoing relationship with the Research Institute at Western Oregon. We had a pretty cool, in my opinion, and apparently from the surveys that we got back, in your opinion, we had a workshop last month on staffing and facilities, and we're planning another workshop in September around curriculum and environments. So we're going to keep, we have the playbook, and we have, and you've been hearing from our colleague Nathan about opportunities to consult with him about implementing extended duration. So that's also a commitment for us. So it's a lot of talking by Teacher Michael. I want to pause and just invite any comments, feedbacks, things you like, things that we're missing, things that you're excited about, things that make you go, just pause there.
I just had a chance to finish Early Head Start Boot Camp with National TNTA, and I was wondering if the state of Oregon was planning on doing something similar for those of us that are just getting to know Early Head Start.
Getting to know you. That's an excellent idea. I might want to pick your brain about that, Robert. Can you tell us more about that experience?
It was very high quality training that took place over the course of 4 days. It was 3 or 4 hours a day. They took us through the standards and then talked about how those standards are applied practically. And then among the different participants, we got to talk about what home visiting curriculums to use and the differences between, the nuances of all those different curriculum. So I found this to be very helpful, and I'd really like to do something here in the state so we could get a local group of folks going that are brand new and can work together on Early Head Start startup.
I have thought about that quite a bit, and I think it's a really good idea. We've also been, way back, maybe in like December, if people remember COVID, we had been in contact a little bit with Mary Foltz and a few other people who were really thinking about those things. So we can start, I'm more than happy to start that conversation. I know Andy's been thinking about it as well. So if other folks are interested, please put it in the chat box, and maybe we have a little PLC started to think about these things.
That would be so helpful. And I see that someone responded that they used Mary Foltz as an early Head Start consultant. She is amazing. So if we can get her to help out, that would be really helpful.
Well, I know that programs can contact her directly if for any reason you're interested in doing that. It takes, I think you know a little bit that things around here take a little while sometimes. So, so just know that she's available, and there are a handful of other folks available. I know that we have some of our programs have folks who do internal trainings for early Head Start, for home visiting and that stuff. So reach out. We can create a space where we we can create a space where we gather the information, and you have more than one person to contact or to interact with when thinking about these things, as well as having a possible PLC.
There's a space for us somewhere. A space for us. It's a little musical reference for you there, Robert. So we're going to stop now, but I'll make one more comment, is that there's another set of things that are not priorities, but what we're calling principles for doing TNTA. And one of the important things that we want to think about is ongoing job and professional learning, and not just here's the training, here's your binder. But so we are thinking a lot about PLCs, about communities of practice, about getting together coaches across programs. So we're thinking about what can we do to facilitate things that are maybe harder for individual programs to do, but we're also recognizing that you all do so much already. So with that, I'm going to pause there. If you're super fired up about this topic, or you know people in your organization are, I've already spoken to some of your ed managers, ed coordinators who are fired up. So send them my way, and I want to learn more about how I can be of help. My timeline is delayed as well too, so I can't spend any money yet, but we're going to get there. With that, I'll turn it over to Teresa.
Well, thank you. Can you hear me? And I asked this because my headset and microphone have been having huge problems the last few days. So the first thing I have on here is EGMs. Final claims for 1920 are due by I believe the 14th of August. If you are going to need an extension to bring to figure out all your expenditures, let me know so that I can extend your ability to claim. And if you have a chance, make sure and mark this final, because even though this says it's the 1921 period, we did not anticipate that this was going to be a one-year grant cycle this time around. So it is okay to mark them final this time. Next is the annual OPK data collection, which is up and running. And I just want to remind everyone that you need to download if you're doing a CSV file, please download the current template, because there was one change, not to information, but to the header that they asked to have on it for ODE's data. So let me know if you have questions about that. It is staying open till the end of September to give you some extra time. And as per usual, if you find you need time after that, I can extend you, because I have a little bit of power in this area. Before I get to site and service workbooks, I want to add one thing that I just found out. An official message is going to come later today, tomorrow. We're getting the wording put out. But as far as the equity deliverables that we had in your grant for year one, the only deliverable that we're currently going to be holding to, we're choosing not to enforce the demographic data collection, the analysis, and those pieces, because we were not able to get information to you. And so the only thing that should have happened is any training requirements. For this next year of the grant, the word will come out today also that we will be holding just for training requirements while we reevaluate the demographics and the other pieces of this work. I'm not sure how that's going to affect the work plans at this point. That is the other piece that we just have to put a pin in, because that hasn't been discussed yet. Again, there'll be a formal message going out later today. that I should have in hand, and this is the first Michael and Lindsay have heard of it, so I'm apologizing to them. But I had said
What?
I know. I had said that I would get this information out as quickly as possible. So I'm giving you kind of the verbal now with a written update to come later today or tomorrow.
This probably never happens to directors where they learn about things in meetings they didn't know about. Probably never happens.
Never. And it's been in the works because we've known that between COVID and some staffing changes here, there were pieces that programs needed in order to do this work we're asking them to do that we were not able to give them as we should have. So more to come on that. And then I have that update on site and service workbooks, and I was going to be prepped for that, and then I got sidetracked by equity. As I told you previously, we're going to be going back to the Excel site and service workbook instead of doing it in Smartsheet. One of the big reasons for that is that it's much easier for us to track this. It's easier visually for programs to see their data in the spreadsheet workbook format that we previously had. And so we're going back to this, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to take a quick look to pull it up because I was going to have it ready so that I could share. There are a few changes, not massive, I don't think, but I am going to be not able to send these out until after the agreements are executed. So I needed to make sure that everyone got a peek at them first.
Do you want to be the presenter, Teresa? There you go.
Yeah, see, I already have that handled.
Great.
So what you can see here, and let me fill up my screen. This is going to be the final page of the site and service workbook. I'm starting here because this is going to say do not enter. And when we get the final out, it will do some of the math and do some of the totals for questions that sometimes we have to go digging through site and service workbooks to answer. So one of the improvements between that and Smartsheet is that we won't have to create some of the answers to some of the questions we get asked. On the first page, we'll go to that. There is a slight change in how we're breaking down programs and enrollment. We are asking for your federal Head Start slots and federal Early Head Start slots as separate numbers. That includes any federal you have, even though we may not count all of those slots in our monthly reporting. The main reason for that is we get asked a lot of questions about children in services. Michael, you're laughing.
Yeah, if you could tell us the number of Early Head Start children in the following 3 counties who are in family child care by address, that would be great.
Right.
We get that question or a variation of that question about 30 times a week.
Right. And there is one thing I want to point out here is that we are asking, when we ask for federal slots, we are asking you to break those down by region. So if you have multiple federal Head Start slots, region 10, 11, or 12, please separate those out for us. It would be so helpful. And then breaking down OPK by 3 to 5 and prenatal to 3. Staff contacts, pretty much what you're used to.
Oh, we lost you, Teresa, for a second.
Yeah, my computer's doing something weird. Can you hear me? All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Good. Can you actually hear me on my headset?
Don't know.
Okay. Well, if you hear me clearly, chances are that you're hearing me.
Chances are.
And for whatever reason, it took away my... But can you still see the spreadsheet?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, I'm just going to go with that. So we did add a facilities because that has come up, and then we added some separate 3 to 5 coordinator and P3 coordinator, and we understand not every program will have things broken down in that way. So if you put titles and people in those places or put NA, that will be super helpful for us. Site list hasn't really changed. Site and class info, we're breaking into 2 tabs, one for 3 to 5, which includes all the program model options. We're breaking down, we want to know how many kiddos in a classroom, or how many slots you're allocating is a better way to put it, because things change, and I know how braided, blended, and all that funding goes. So we're asking about kiddos in your classrooms based on Preschool Promise, OPK Head Start, non-OPK Head Start for those of you who have EIECSE, non-OPK Head Start Preschool Promise for community childcare. If there are areas that don't fit these categories, give us a call, because I would love to get down to the nitty-gritty of how some of these classrooms are being put together and get more information on that. We rewrote the teacher qualifications section to better align with what we have on salary requirements and on Head Start standards, and Michael can speak to that more, but hopefully I've covered that. One of the things that we find gets missed is the teacher waivers tab. If they need a waiver or have a waiver, please go ahead and fill out the teacher waivers tab over here, which we use to help us monitor not just whether your program has a waiver, but also to help us look at what our state looks like and regions look like as far as available teachers. Sometimes having teachers who don't meet the current standards alerts us to an idea of some educational opportunities that maybe a region needs, or some other things, other resources. And I'm not going to get too far into that because it's actually not my area of expertise. When we go to P3, prenatal to 3, not preschool to 3rd grade, we have the program models that are available for prenatal to 3. And so you'll see some differences. We've added in Baby Promise. We're breaking things down that are more specific to the prenatal to 3. So if you have questions again, or have input as to how this could be better, this year of our grant is definitely going to be a pilot year a little bit on some things. And so gathering input, especially on our reporting, for me will be huge, because I always want our reporting to be, I'm going to lose the word. I want it to be relevant to the work that's being done, relevant to the outcomes we're trying to look at, and relevant to the supports we want to give the field. Screening assessments and curriculum, we didn't make any changes to that. However, we are looking for any information you might want to provide us as to what we could add to our questions regarding screening assessment and curriculum. This will go out shortly after your grants go out, even before they're executed. I know it's going to take some time to get these in, so we'll set the due date once we have a clearer idea as to when the grants are going to be able to go out the door. And that way we can be reasonable about it, without me saying right now, well, they're due at the end of September, but maybe you get them September 15th, which I really don't want to do to anyone. And so that is the updated, and for a couple of you, new site and service workbook for any of our programs. And I know our prenatal to 3 have never been asked to do this before. So if you want to take some separate time with me to go over this, I'm happy to schedule some time and work with anybody who has questions or needs to. Marcy, McVie slots. Yes, that sounds great. Thank you, Lindsay. We'll capture that and add it before these go out.
Teresa, thank you for that. I think we're at time, and I know people want to get to the camp thing. That's
Got
okay.
it. Nope.
So yeah, feel free to reach out with Teresa if you would like an individual consult on that. And next webinar is the 19th at 9 o'clock. Remember that via the portal, you can always, there's a link there for you've got topics or questions you want to address at the webinar. And with that, I will say goodbye and thank you, and be well and be in touch.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.